Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is your weekly program, Lifetime Impact. I am your host, Bishop Dr. Frederick Abubakar Sidiki Suleiman Koroma. And today we have a very important guest with us, and very soon you will know her. And I believe you're going to be blessed, tremendously blessed. So get your friends and family members and tell them that the program that is designed to shape their life and destiny is on now. God richly bless you. In life, you are supposed to make an impact. You don't die like a non-entity. All right? God has designed it in such a way that our lives should leave some legacy behind, even when we are dead and gone. Remember, if you talk about in the field of politics, you remember the famous speech of Churchill. All right? You remember Nelson Mandela. These are people who have made impact in their lives. You also remember the names like Martin Luther King, who said, I have a dream. Martin Luther King, who shaped the history of black Americans in America. I have a dream that one day my four little kids will not be judged by their color, but by their character and their intellect. So he left a legacy behind, okay, an indelibly footprint which the young generation are looking up to. And so please, you are next in line. Don't die a non-entity. You are supposed to make a mark, whether you are a businessman, whether you are a teacher, a pastor. You are just an extra to the ordinary to make you an extraordinary personality. And so today, God will add an extra to your life to make you extraordinary. So my guest here this morning, this afternoon rather, will introduce herself. She will tell us her name and a brief background about her family. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valnora Edwin, and I'm a Sierra Leonean. I'm from the Edwin family. I'm the youngest of 8 siblings. And I'm sure that the conversation today will be able to bless your life.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Welcome, Miss Edwin. So what are you doing currently?
So currently I'm the chairperson of an organization called the African Women's Leaders Network. I'm also the public relations officer of the 50/50 group. And I serve as a board member of the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion.
Wow, young girls, I believe this is your time. This is an example that you ought to copy, you know. Miss Edwin has already introduced herself to us, and she said she came from a family of eight siblings?
Yes.
Good. Where are they now? Where are they currently? Yours?
So I have 2 siblings here in Sierra Leone, and the others are out of Sierra Leone. I have a brother and a sister here. We are not from the same mother. We are from different mothers, but my mother brought all of us together, and so we still watch each other's back. We keep in touch. We even have a family group, so we are still in touch.
Okay, that's interesting. I think you have a sister called, what's her name now? She works in South America?
Yes, she's Alison. She's the UNICEF representative to Belize.
Oh, to Belize.
To Belize.
Okay, Belize. Okay, that's interesting. I think I've known you for quite some time now, over 2 or 3 decades.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I knew your mom before she passed.
Yes.
I knew. What about your aunt, doctor?
Yes.
Is she still alive?
She's alive. She's 89 years old.
89 years of age.
We live together now.
We live together.
Yes.
Dr. Jana Jared, I think.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, your parents. Tell us about something about your parents. What were they doing for living?
So, from what I could recollect or told, my parents were civil servants. My mother was a chartered accountant. She worked in various government agencies, starting with the Sierra Leone High Commission in the UK then, and then she worked where we would call the Foreign Affairs Ministry. She worked for what we call EDSA now.
Okay.
Electricity was what it was referred to. She worked for Sierra Leone Diamonds. She worked for private companies as well as Wellington Distilleries. At the time, they had those farms in those areas. My father was also a civil servant. He studied law, but he didn't practice as a lawyer. And I know he worked at the what they call HRMO, Human Rights. Human Resource Management Office now. It used to be referred to as Establishment Office.
Okay.
And then he was in the Judicial Service Commission. He served as the secretary. So they were both civil servants. My mother retired. In fact, she was in her 70s and she worked for Sierra Leone Commercial Bank.
Wow.
And then my father, when he retired as well from the Law Officers Department, because that's where you have the Judicial Service Commission, he worked at the Sierra Leone Daily Mail until he passed on.
Wow, that's interesting. That is an interesting background. So how was life like growing up with your parents as a young girl coming up?
Well, my parents separated. They were not divorced, but they were separated when I was quite young. But my father was still a bit, he still played a role in our lives. And so my mother had to bring us up, 3 girls. We were all together. We were with her when they separated. You had the highs and the lows. There were times, especially when my mother lost her job, financially it was challenging because my father was not doing everything we felt he was supposed to do. And so we had some challenging moments. But one good thing I always say is we never slept hungry.
Okay.
We were never untidy. We didn't have the best clothes or the best shoes, but contentment, we were quite content.
Wow.
And it was challenging because I do recall sometimes we had to go to my father's friends, and I know it still happens. At the end of the school year, you take your report card, uncle, I pass, go class, so and so,
Okay.
just so that we could get some money and mom would be able to augment the school issues. Daddy would pay the fees, but the uniforms and all the day-to-day issues, he would not be too enthusiastic. He would buy all the books, obviously, but then all other costs, my mother had to manage. She was doing it, actually, until she had an issue with her job. Then it became very challenging. And then at that time where I was in secondary school, my second sister was at university, and my eldest sister was out of the country. She was studying medicine.
Wow. So how did that affect you when you lost your father? I think you were in what form you were in by then?
I was in Form 4 at the Annie Walsh when I lost my dad.
Okay.
I think it became worse because what happened, my father's sister took hold of all what my daddy had, because he had a house, he had some other assets, he had his benefits from the government, and I think a lumpy sum. And so she claimed all of it because she changed my father's will, because we got to know that from the lawyer who did it, that my father had made his will to his children.
Okay.
And she took hold of it, and the house was built by both mom and dad. But then, again, my aunt took all of it, his cars, his clothes, and everything he had.
Wow.
But they had to go to court. The good thing was the lawyers were friends of my father, so they didn't request for a fee. And so eventually we were able to get the benefits because it was in his will. So they had to contest the will because of the age, and I was still in school. So we were able to have that, and that helped a bit. But I think it was a very challenging and emotional time, especially for my mom, now that I'm reflecting, because this belonged to her as well. They built their life together.
Okay.
And that particular aunt of mine was, I would say, partly responsible for them going apart. So her continued interference was a very big challenge, even at the time when my father had died.
Okay. Is she still alive? Yeah?
She's dead.
Oh,
she's dead
now. So you lost your father, and I think after which your mom lost her job.
Yes.
How did you cope? How did you cope in such a
It was difficult. So my mom, she was very industrious, and what happened was I think they call it, they liquidated the company. At that time, she was at the Sierra Leone Diamonds, and so it was just having some challenges to get her benefits. So what she did was, I recall at that time they had what they call the Benkanu rice, and she knew Benkanu, so she would get in touch with him, and then she would sell out the rice so we could have the money and then plow it in again. And then she sold tin tomatoes. She would get the cases of tomatoes, and she would then have a few customers, so it would sell out. She sold rice. The rice she sold, we even had to sell some by cup, and I was doing that because I was the one with her then. My sister was at university. We sold kerosene as well.
Wow.
So yeah, we sold all of that. And like I said, we never slept hungry. We had meals every day. We didn't have all the best clothing and shoes and all of that, but we survived.
You survived.
And I know one thing, Mom was always prayerful. In fact, a few weeks ago, my sister and I, that's my second sister, we were closer because my eldest sister had traveled well, I think after sixth form. No, she did a year at FBC and then she left. So it was just my sister Alison. We had to go through all of this, and we were reminiscing some of the issues that we had to endure. I do recall we lived at Pademba Road in the wooden house, and sometimes the old board that would use, they had replaced, that's what we'd use to cook. Because we had gas, but we couldn't afford to buy gas. So we used these old, the wood we had, the wooden planks we had replaced, and that's what we would use as firewood.
Or to cook?
To cook on the coal pot that we had there.
Is that the same building where Dr. Jai had
yes.
a clinic?
Yes,
So?
yes,
Wow.
that's the same building.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So you went through some challenges in life.
Yes, we did.
And there was a time I couldn't quite recall when I think you wore your sister's shoe to school. How do you manage to surmount the ridicule that you face at school wearing your sister's shoes?
So even then, I recall my father was alive then, but
she was alive, okay.
I was very boisterous whilst I was at school.
Okay.
And well, for some reason, my shoes would always get spoilt. I was at the annual wash then. But then it got to a point because my father was, if he'd got shoes for you when school reopened, he wouldn't buy another pair for you. So my mother had to do that, and I would call, my father would always have what we call the karanke. You know, we had all these shoemakers all around. He didn't have any issues taking it to the karanke for them to repair. But then they repaired my shoes to the point it couldn't be repaired. So I had to have an old abandoned shoes my sister was putting on.
Were you in secondary school by then?
Yes, in the third form at the annual wash.
Wow.
And then you had all these, you always have bullies in school. And you had this set of girls. They were not necessarily my friends, I would say. I had my friends that I moved around with. They had no issue. But then these ones were saying, look at your shoes, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, my goodness.
And strangely, it was then I actually looked at the shoe and I thought, this looks bad. And I recall I went home that day and I said to Mom, no, I think I told my sister, I said, they laughed at me at school today. And I said, look at my shoe. And she said, I know. And she actually told my dad. And then my dad bought me a pair of shoes.
Oh, that's interesting.
So my father and that sister of mine had a very strong relationship. So even though Dad wouldn't want to do a lot of things, the moment she would say, no, Daddy, things are really bad, he would do something.
Wow, young girls. So you see, this is an inspiration to many of you. Maybe you are facing some obstacles in life, difficulties and challenges, and you're about to throw the towel. Look at Valnora, what happened to her. She went to school, she had a sister's shoe on, they laughed at her, but she overcame the ridicule. She overcame all of these, and now look at what she is today. And very soon she will unfold to you what God has done in and through her life so that you'll be challenged. It's a challenge to young people. Don't give up in life, regardless of the circumstances. At one point in time, I told them during the time they interviewed me that when I lost my father, my father was badly sick by then. My father was a security man. He was an illiterate man. Security, he couldn't even write A. If you write A as big as this building, he will call it, I don't know how to call it, maybe Puyo or Mapama, I don't know, But there was a day when I was admitted at Saudi Grammar School. So I went to school, but I had shoe to go put on to school. So my elder brother had a girlfriend by then. She was a police officer. So she said, well, I get a police show with my unisex, manager. So I put the show on, I went to school, come out school cover, the bluff of Kanawood with my boater on, everything else. Then I had this guy singing behind me, Kong Kang Umasus, Kong Kang Umasus. So I was like, what's happening? Why did the guy sing? I didn't know then, it was first time in school. So I turned around, they were laughing at me, really cool. I said to myself, I wish the ground would just open up and swallow me. It was. So, but even with that, we had to contend with all of these challenges, to be where we are today. So tell listeners, what schools did you attend? Your primary school, your secondary school?
So primary school, I started at the Tower Hill Municipal School, and then I went to the Frobe College School.
Okay.
Then I went to the Annie Walsh, and then I did my sixth form at St. Edward's.
Oh, wow, 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 wow. So you went to Annie Walsh and did your sixth form?
At the St. Edward's
St. Edward's
Secondary
School.
Yeah.
By then, it was
unisex. It was Sarob, yes.
Sarob?
Yes.
Okay, after Sarob, we had, I think, Parena.
Parena, yes.
Because that was the place where we used to meet in the evening for our church services, before we even put up this building today. Okay, that's very interesting. So you were opting to read commercial subjects.
Yes.
So how did you end up reading arts in the art faculty?
So I'd actually intended becoming a banker, and so whilst I was at St. Edward's, I was offering accounts, government, and government, and history, I think. And but then I had some medical issue, so I couldn't take my A-level exams.
Okay.
Whilst during the first term of being in the upper six, so I couldn't take the exams, and so medically it was advised I do not do economics, because I wanted to go to the economics faculty, and advised to take arts, which was considered to be less hectic than doing these mathematical things. So that's how I ended up. I went to the art scheme at F.A.S College, and I ended up going to the honors class. I had an honors degree in linguistics, and then, but that was one thing, and then when I got a job, it was completely different from what I had studied.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So can you tell viewers and listeners the importance of holding tenaciously to your dreams and vision despite the obstacles and the challenges? Because there's a popular proverbs or adage that says, winners never quit and quitters never win. Can you expound on this so that listeners, people who are listening to you now, will get inspiration from what you have to say to them?
I think whilst being younger, my mother was very prayerful, and as I mentioned a few weeks ago, my sister and I were reminiscing that my mother always prayed. We recall she was crying and should be praying like, these children are young, especially after my father died. How would I bring them up alone and all of that? And then I would say, secondly, my sister got to know the Lord quite early, and she took it quite seriously. So I think she was also a good example, because even when you had all these challenging moments, which I think I'll expound on when we get to talking to young girls, you would think we might stray off, or there'll be some attraction elsewhere. She was very focused, and I think because of that, it was an influence with me. And probably getting older, because even in the workplace environment, there were times it was very challenging. I was managing an NGO, and I think for me the biggest challenge there was resources. There were times at the end of the month we couldn't pay staff, and I recall a colleague and myself, for 3 months we didn't take any salary, so we could pay the staff. I deal a lot with the government. I didn't have an issue with what was happening with the government, but it was the internal dynamics that was an issue. And also, subsequently, I had a male staff, who became, something else. He even got to the board, made all sorts of claims that were definitely not true. And so within all of that, but the faith was always there.
That's right.
Because even when I took over the organization, I realized I was having some very funny dreams. Like, you feel sometimes, especially at night, you'll feel a presence. I'll feel a presence in my room. I'll wake up, then I'll have this feeling of somebody squeezing my throat.
Wow.
I'll wake up and I'll be in a dream, and you'll want to say Jesus, and you can't say anything. You are fighting to say, and then subsequently you'll be able to say something. And I had that dream repeatedly. So my brother-in-law was a pastor, and Pastor Sil McFoy. So it got to a point I even had to take them to the office for like a month or so, called some of the staff I trusted, and we prayed, we fasted, we anointed the office. And then after a while, when I said this was going on, it was like maybe for 3, 4, 5 years, I'll just have this funny dream. But then over time, it stopped. So within all of that, I think getting older, there was a bit more awareness that I had to pray, I had to fast, I had to read scriptures, and I just had to anchor my faith, because even at those moments when you couldn't pay staff, and these were people with families, it was just to say, God, you've given me this job. We're making a difference in this country in our own little way, and you have to provide. You know.
Wow. So was that the first job you got after university?
Yes, that was my
How do you
first
manage?
job.
How do you manage to get this job?
So a year after I left college, I didn't have a job. Just the usual. You write countless applications, and they'll tell you don't have the experience and all of that. And then a friend of mine just called one day and said, I've been offered a job, but I don't want a day job, because he's a lawyer. And he said, I thought of you. And he asked me, do you know this organization, etc., etc. The good thing I knew, because it was Zainab Bangura that we all know.
Okay.
And the other individual was, interestingly, my father's friend's son, and so like a family friend. He said, so just get in touch with him, and then you can have a conversation. And so that's how I got the job, just like that. And for the first 3 months, I'll say it was on a volunteer basis. I was going to work every day. They will give me a stipend at the end of the month. And then afterwards, I had to manage a project. And that's how I got to be at Campaign for Good Governance for 18 years.
For 18 years?
Yes.
So what position did you occupy while you were working?
So I started as the Assistant Human Rights Officer.
Okay.
And if you know, Abdul Tijankoli was the former anti-corruption commissioner. He was my boss, immediate boss then. I became the Human Rights Officer because he couldn't manage that. He was the Human Rights Officer, and then I became the head of programs, and then eventually I became the executive director. I served as the head for 12 years, but I was in the organization for 18 years.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow, so you see, when you hold on to your dreams, despite what is happening around you, at the end of the day, we'll have a testimony, because there is no glory without a story. All right? Don't tell me about you want to become a star. First of all, where are the scars? Because every good general sustains scars, you know. So don't quit. You see, this is the reason why she is where she is today. I mean, if you say the name of Valnora Edwin, when I send this post to different places, to different people, and I have some positive comments. Oh, I know her. Oh, she's good. Oh, she's that. But that's why she's giving you her testimony, to tell you the crucibles she faced while she was going through life. Okay, so you work at Campaign for Good Government and Truth and Reconciliation, right?
So whilst I was at Campaign for Good Governance, I started working there in the year 2000.
Okay.
And would all recall it was like the immediate post-conflict era.
Okay.
And Sierra Leone established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the Special Court.
Mm-hmm.
So I became the focal person for Campaign for Good Governance. And so most of the activities, all the engagements that had to be done, I was doing that. And what that entailed was we had officers outside the beyond rebel lines across the country. They were sending reports of what was going on, and then I had to summarize that, hand it to Mrs. Zainab Bangura then, and then she would engage with the government and the UN. Sometimes I would accompany her to some of these meetings, or sometimes she would go alone. And even after she left and Olainka Kutinandu took over, I was still the focal person. I even interviewed a lot of girls that were abducted by rebels. We took their story, and it was a compilation of all of that that eventually led to rape being considered a war crime. It was in the Special Court of Sierra Leone that rape has been adopted as a war crime.
Wow.
And it was a result of all the collation of the stories we had from these young girls. We actually even we had a project where we did interviews with them. And these were handed over to both the TRC and the Special Court, and they took some of them as witnesses.
Oh, that's very interesting. So it's because it's from this background that rape was considered as a war crime.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great achievement. Oh, thank God for your life. Well, listeners and viewers, you can call us on 075 000937, 075 000937. Or you can send us your WhatsApp, to 078 861 497, 078 861 497. Or you can even send us a message, to our Facebook page or YouTube. Okay, we'll hear them during the course of this interview. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to them very soon. God bless you. Okay, during the course of your working with the campaign for good government or CRC, who were you privileged to meet? Who are the people that, some high personalities that you are privileged to encounter?
Well, over the years, I would say I'd actually been privileged to meet a lot of people whilst at Campaign for Good Governance. I do recall at some point we had permanent members of the Security Council. I've been able to meet Ban Ki-moon when he was at the World Bank. I've been able to meet a lot of ministers of governments, not only of Sierra Leone, but in other parts of the world.
Wow.
I've met with the IMF, Christine Lagarde. I think she's left now. So you meet a lot of ministers of government, ambassadors from different countries, both that interacted here in Sierra Leone and doing international trips and sessions. I've gone to the United Nations. I've been to the AU. I've been to ECOWAS. I've interacted with them. And you meet all of these people and you, well, not necessarily directly, but you are in a meeting or you're in a space or you're doing a presentation where they are present.
Ooh. Wow. So in one way or the other, you put Sierra Leone on the limelight.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Definitely. So you see, there are people that you meet in life that will take away from you. They will subtract. There are people who will add to your life. Definitely. So show me the type of friends that you go along with, and I can rightly stand over your head and prophesy your future. Because it said, what do you say? There's a poem that says, birds fly together.
Birds of the same
feathers
birds of the same together.
Flock together. That's right. That's a very interesting one. Okay. I know you dealt with some cases, some very serious issues. Can you tell us, as an employee, some of the cases that you handled?
I do recall, like I said, in 2000, 2001, because of the war, a lot of the state infrastructure had been dismantled. And then, in fact, even prior to the war, we didn't have a lot of these institutions that we have now, especially to handle gender-based violence. Now we have Legal Aid Board, we have Family Support Units, we have Rainbow Center, we have these one-stop centers. But then we were offering legal aid, and I do recall at that time a 9-month-old baby had been sexually abused.
9-month-old baby?
9 months old. He was sexually abused.
What?
You know, when you live in these apartments, we call it like this compound thing, and just a guy next door. And they were staying at Lunge. And so we had to pay for them to come over, and then they had to go to court. And the unfortunate thing was, at that time, this issue of sexual abuse was not taken as seriously as it's been done now. And it would be adjourned. It was adjourned for like a 2-year period.
Ooh.
Yes, so they were going back and forth. We had lawyers who were representing them. I think, if I recall, subsequently the mother stopped attending because it was a bit challenging for her to be coming in from Lunge to Freetown to sit in court, and it was adjourned again and again. So it was a 9-month-old baby.
Did she survive?
She survived. She survived.
That's terrible.
Good thing she was able to receive medical care, but she survived.
Wow, that's how do I call such people?
It still happens. You do have babies. Yes.
Babies who are raped.
Yes.
Are these human beings? Mm-hmm. I wonder what's
babies, 2-year-old, 5.
Oh, Kobajanda Bakanda. This is very serious. And well, from what I've gathered from you, it appears as if you're a woman of vision. You have a vision. So how can you define vision for listeners? What can you say? What is a vision? How can you define it?
I think what I was saying, in life, there's a path you're going to take, and you should know what you expect to see at the end. So it's about your life goals. What do you want to achieve? I think, to be fair, I didn't realize I'll be able to achieve all that I've done now. And I hadn't realized it till I meet a lot of people who say, oh, you're doing a good job. And I keep on thinking, what have I done exactly? What have I said? Have I really done anything? But you know, over time, the feedback you get from all quarters. So like I said, my job involves working a lot with the government, and even whether it's a government in office, a past government, opposition, they will always give you feedback to say, you know, you're always objective. We like your analysis. You make salient points. And then, you know, I'll be traveling all across the country. I'll be walking around. And the moment I'll speak or I'll say my name, somebody will say, oh, yes. Even, I think yesterday or the day before, on Saturday, I was at this old people's home at King George's home. And a man just met me and said, I'm happy they called up your name. He says, I haven't heard you for a long time, and I miss out on your conversation. And I said, well, I'm still around. So I wouldn't say I planned to get to where I am, or from what you hear people say, this is what you've achieved. But I think I just had a focus, and whilst I was in office, I believe this was my job. I had to do my job. I had to be objective. I had to be fair.
Okay. Oh, that's quite interesting. So, listeners, tell me what you want to do in the future. The Bible says, where there is no vision, my people perish. So tell me what you want to become in the future. I'm a pastor today, but I had a dream many years ago of what I want to attain. You know, I want to salvage people from the privity of sin and reconcile them to God. That was my vision. And even now, as I speak to you now, we have a radio station, but there is a dream in my heart to own a TV station, to even put up a university. You know, you should have a dream that is bigger than you, that only with God's intervention that dream can be accomplished. So don't think that life is just, how do I call it, like a mistake. No. A man succeeds in life because he has in mind that I am going to succeed. Today, look at her as an epitome of success. But it's something that she has already dreamt of. She had the privilege, or should I say, she could have, left school long years ago and then, you know, take the trail like other girls are taking. But she said, no, I'm opting for something better. And today, look at, we are proud of getting such people. She has met with former Secretary General, interacted with some people different. So wow, that's quite interesting. So you must aspire for greatness in your life. Do you have one or two texts that have already come in? Yes, please. Let's see if this.
Yes, sir. We have few messages here.
Okay.
We have one from Nature and Olusoya. Thank you for sharing your journey. Impact is indeed an impact.
That's from Turkey, all right?
Yes, to so many of us, because it helps us to work hard and not give up on our dreams. God bless you, His grace.
Okay.
Another one from Sharif Sise. Dad, God bless you, sir. It's really a good thing for us to keep our dreams alive. Okay. Another one from Emmanuel Tamba.
Yes.
What an awesome testimony, Lady Valnora. And many thanks to my father and Bishop for such a wonderful program. And also we have two people are watching, Patricia Williams and Leslie Shilon.
From Bradford. Okay, that's interesting. All right, keep on sending your text messages. And so at least we'll know that this session today is having a direct impact in your life, preparing you for a greater tomorrow. All right, my guest is Ms. Valnora Edwin, and what's your job, the nature of your job now?
I'm the chairperson of the African Women Leaders Network.
Chairperson of African Women
Leaders Network.
Leaders Network. African, not Sierra Leone.
African.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And then what else again?
I'm the public relations officer of the 50-50 group.
50-50 group?
Yes.
Okay. Then?
A board member of the Independent Commission for Peace and National Cohesion.
Wow. So what the men can do, women can also do it. Definitely. What men can do, women can also do it. Don't just relegate yourself to only be a housewife, a nanny, whatever it is. You can catapult your way to the top. Definitely. Just have that success syndrome in your heart. You know, preoccupy your mind with that I can make it in life. No further than the within where they take it for when they begin, they are first of the day up to today. They are just there. So when you die now, what do you become now? So please leave something behind, a legacy. You know, if I should die now and go to meet my maker, definitely there are works that speak volume of what I've accomplished in life. So aspire to be somebody great, and God will honor you, and God will see that your vision will come to pass. So you studied at Fobe College?
I did.
So where did you study, and what are the qualifications?
So I had my first degree at Fobe College, honors in linguistics. Then I have a master's in human rights from Central European University in Budapest in Hungary.
Okay.
Then I have another master's in governance and leadership for my PAM.
Wow.
Then I have a certificate in theories of international relations from, it's an online training program from a university in Austria, Transcend Peace University.
Wow. So you see, Ilano, study, it's high, it's sacrifice. So some of you get back if you say you don't arrive. You get back now, police may not want you for join police. Because police want we get WASC. So aspire from Beke, you go get WASC, aspire for go university, aspire for be great. Definitely, you know. When you do that, God himself go endorse her, and God will say, yes, I will support you because you stand on your word and you get a vision. Okay, what should I say next? That means you have a wealth of international experiences. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you throw light on some of them?
So whilst at Campaign for Good Governance, you are opportune to attend a lot of conferences, workshops, seminars, training. So even added to my educational knowledge, most of these workshops, training, and these meetings also give you additional exposure. Okay. Because then you get to, we have international networks. I belong to a few other international networks. And you get to understand how they operate in their own countries, the initiatives they take. So I've been to several parts of the world, a lot of African countries, Nigeria, Senegal, Guinea, Liberia, Uganda. I studied in South Africa. I'm a fellow of the International Center for Transitional Justice. Mm-hmm. I was in the University of Cape Town to study transitional justice as well.
Okay.
So I've been there, I live there, and then I've been to countries like Peru, I've been to Iraq, I've been to the US, I've been to Germany, Sweden, host of others.
Wow. When did you go to Iraq? Before Saddam?
After Saddam. I was there in 2010, 2011.
Okay.
Yes. It was a bit scary because of the security dynamics, but was there for about 3 days and then flew back.
Wow. So some listeners or viewers will have this concept that you are very lucky. You say lucky, or look, you know, say don't travel, say don't go, say don't go. If you go and they guy again, how can you debunk such a misconception? Is it a matter of luck that you?
I think it's a matter of favor.
Okay.
And I think it's also about being dedicated and being hardworking.
Hardworking. Yeah.
Because my former bosses that I have, like Dr. Zainab Bangura, she would also, whenever something happens, I'm still in touch with her, and she would say, I knew you'd be somebody who would achieve something because you were hardworking.
Very good.
You were focused. So, you know, we would pray that I want this to happen, but you need to be ready. Mm-hmm. You need to have the demeanor, the posture, the ability to grow, to learn. Mm-hmm. Because even now, I work with a lot of young people, but whenever I engage them, I'll usually say, I don't have all the skills and the knowledge. I'm also still learning. Okay. So it's also being able to learn and to make sure you are there when it's time, when God says, I'm giving you this, he has to see that you're ready. And I think over the years, that favor is there because sometimes some things that happen, I sometimes wonder, how did this happen? You know, I work in the civil society space, and a lot of my colleagues will say, oh, I was threatened, or this happened to me, or that happened to me. I've never experienced that.
Wow.
I would always say, like I said, you'll have very senior people who would call or send messages that, oh, I like your contribution, I like what you said. Or some would say, I recall I was the civil society representative for the Mano River Union. We went to the UN to do, they had what they call the pledging conference, where you had all these donors from across the world to support Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone during the Ebola. And you had all the governments were there, even the heads of states were there. They had a different panel. And I was the civil society representative for the 3 countries. And I had an official who was saying to me, yeah, big knock and blast winner. But one thing I do internationally is ensuring I market my country, because I'm a Sierra Leonean. So whatever else I have to say would be in country. What we see as big issues here, we pose outside. These are the challenges we are having. How can you help? But I usually say it's the simple logic. I cannot say, oh, Sierra Leone, Sierra Leone is so corrupt. I am a Sierra Leonean. Therefore, I am corrupt. That's the logic.
That's right.
So I never play that. So whenever I'm outside and I have an opportunity, it's about how Sierra Leone can be supported to be a better place, rather than marketing it negatively. The negativity, we can discuss it in-house.
That's right.
But, you know, wash your dirty linens at home.
Yes, yes. Wow, that's interesting. So there are some people now, you ask about Sierra Leone, no, that bad country. Now, what you are confessing negative things about the nation, and you are praying. You know, let's hope that God will change the hearts of our leaders. God will bless the hearts of them and grant them the divine wisdom and understanding to take this nation to another dimension. So don't talk negative things about your nation. Yes, things are happening, but we ought to be praying, definitely, and ask God, God, please, divinely intervene. Miss Edwin, it's very interesting. I remember there was a time when I went to preach in Tombo. That was many years ago, before I even went to university, after I left university. I was a pastor. I went to preach in Tombo, and I could not afford the luxury of being in the hotel. So apparently I was the youngest among the 3 of us that went. So I had to sleep on the floor. And you know, when you slept on the floor, there was some pots and pans under the bed. So all throughout the night, you'll be wrestling with the pots and pans, you know. And I had to walk from Waterloo to Tombo. You know, that's a testimony. When I shared with some young men, they will say, what's well, so you go through things in life? If I say everything just comes, I say, look at you. These things are difficult for me. Difficult. But today, by the grace of God, God has showcased, you know, my areas of suffering. Tell us about your own areas where you sacrifice a lot. I could remember that, I think, during the conversation you spoke about, there was a time when you slept on the bare floor. Can you tell listeners about this experience?
Yes, so one of the things I loved, or I still love about my job, it gives you a range of engagement. So you'll be able to engage with, from the, you might not call it the lowest, but, you know, from the common man to those who are very key decision makers. And I do recall we were going up country immediately after the war. And I recall we were going to Cambia. And we know what had happened in Cambia, because that was where the rebels were staying and the Guineans had driven them out. But there was a lot of destruction. And we didn't have anywhere to stay.
Wow.
And so we were in this mud house and sleeping on this place. In fact, in the morning I woke up and I saw all these marks on my feet, and I was saying to my colleague, what is all of this? And she started laughing. She said, chinch. Now, chinch don't bet you so. You know, I was thinking, wow. I never knew what bed bugs were. And in fact, I didn't see any of them. But the conditions were so deplorable. We didn't even have a bathroom.
Wow.
So we were going with some of these lawyers and all that. So the men would go to the river to have their bath, and the lady and myself, they would fetch water for us, and we'd just find somewhere to have a bath and do whatever. That's where and even, I think around 2012, we had a session it's in a village in Bont district. And when we got there, it was close to the elections, and they said, well, NEC had taken the guest house, we needed to stay. So my colleague who was based in Bond had to find somewhere else for me to stay. And the whole night it was with the rats.
The rats?
They were on the roof, you could hear them, they were falling on the bed and all over. And I went with another male colleague, and In the morning, he was coming and he said, Miss Edwin, I'm so worried I couldn't sleep. I said, what happened? He said, I was thinking of you. I said, I survived. And in fact, they woke me up at around 5:30, 6. And the lady was saying, I need you to go and have your bath. That was like outside. Have your bath now because, I don't want you to use the bathroom. Just have your bath outside. So I was outside the house at 6 o'clock in the morning. Wow. I was having my bath and I survived. So, you meet the heights and the lows. At the same time, I've slept at the Hilton, at the Marriott, wow. Intercontinental. Like so, that. You enjoy all of that. But one thing I think helps all of that, you get to appreciate, you don't take things for granted. Mm-hmm. You get to see the different world view. Mm-hmm. And because I work in an area where you have to influence policies, when you see how these internationals make decisions, you realize they see things from their own window. Mm-hmm. And it's a different world for them. But when you are sitting in those spaces, you get to see, okay, if we think of doing this, how can this be implemented? Like in that village where I was, mm-hmm. I realized that they had a vehicle that left at 6 or around 6:10 in the morning. Mm-hmm. When it wasn't quite light. That's when it left that village and moved to Bo. And it came back at 7 in the evening because that's the only means of transportation. Wow. So if there were too many people leaving or you missed out on that, you were not up early enough or what, you've missed out going into town to do your thing and they were coming back. If the vehicle had a breakdown, that meant they didn't have any means of transportation. So, those are things that, it opens your eyes a lot not to take anything for granted. Mm. And if you are in a policy space, it's always good to look at all sides, that if I'm thinking of implementing this, how would it play out in a place like that? That they don't even have a radio station. They can't hear anything, but they can get like BBC. There is no electricity, obviously. Mm. So... it gives you a lot of perspective and I would say it helps you to think deeply. And especially if you sit as a policy maker, you think deeply what your contribution will be or how you analyze things so that it could impact those lives positively and it could be adapted to their context.
Ooh, that's interesting. Slept with rats, beaten by bed bugs, called chinch. And then I know you definitely you will see some lizards around. Because where you see rats, you see lizards. And I like it. You slept on the floor and then you're giving us another example of how God has blessed you. You slept in Marriott, in Hilton Hotel. That's very interesting. King David, if you knew King David when he was a king, then you might thought King David was a fortunate man. He came from a very special family. But if King David will unfold to you about the challenges he had in life, how he fought with the bear and lion, how he was a shepherd boy, how he contended with Goliath, how he almost lost his life, then you would think, no, King David, that's not for become a king, and not for being a king. You know what I mean? So don't look at a man's story, at a man's glory. Don't see a man riding a big jeep, a lady riding a big jeep, flying in business class. They say, oh, what for be like car, what for be like that day. You want go bet, you want to bet you? Go to a village, you stay there, 6 o'clock, you will take bath. Some food, na shower. Hot, I call them cold and hot, bathtub, jacuzzi. But there is a time for every purpose. There's a time for every purpose on planet Earth. So when I travel with my wife, I fly with my wife, we fly. We go send a hotel na Italy. We go send a hotel. But there's time in there, we not hotel, they stay. I don't sleep na chair, na grafting. I don't sleep na gun, na Usai. Na Tumbo. Then I went to push in Tayama. There was a time. River Tai? That was the first time I went to Tayama, to cross the River Tai. Okay. Oh my goodness me. I crossed the river, then all the drink water, access what I would drink. He said, now what I will cross, so people they can sit down in the way they call. And I said, what? If on board, what they're going to see the bed now, they go give me bed for the dog. I go to the bed, I want to sit down. The materials na icon and a mud. So she don't even pow! It's what we say, be careful. Then they put the matter and they don't asleep. So that's how life is. Yeah. Because to every glory in King David's life, there's a story. To Valnora Edwin today, to what she is today in life, she has a story to tell. Good. Let us get some of the comments.
Yes, sir. We have one from Cynthia Smythe. Thank the Lord for your precious life, Valnora. You have always been a great model. God bless and cause you to make an even more impact.
That's Cynthia Smythe. She was
Yeah.
one time my guest. She's a lawyer, pastor. She's still in one. A lawyer, a pastor, and a lecturer.
I know
You know her very well. Okay. I have known her since she was attending F.A.S School.
Ah.
Oh, yes, yes. I come to one come out. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Another one from Bashiru Mansari. Good testimony. God bless you. We thank you so much for impact.
Good.
And another one for Mrs. Olusoya Conte. To make an impact, you need to identify, motivate, push, arise, change, maker, trustworthy. One from Leslie Shillon. Praise God for your life and testimony, Valnora. Have been blessed to see you develop and grow. I pray that God will continue to bless and expand your course.
You know him?
I know him.
Was it lecturer at the time when you actually
No,
know him?
he knew Alison.
Oh,
So
he knew
I knew him
Alison?
through Alison.
Okay, very well, okay.
Expand your coast in Jesus' name. Thank God for impact and the example of our mentor and Papa Bishop. One from Nathan Olusoya again. Passion and dedication lacking amongst most of us young people. Mr. Shillon, wow, I'm impressed by your in representing Salon in international forum. Indeed, we need to change our words to change and affect our world. Charles Conte is saying very impressive.
Charles Conte?
Yes.
Finance.
And we have few people that are watching. Finda Conte, Patricia Koroma, and your wife.
That's my
Yes.
wife. She must
She's-
watch it.
yes,
I told her I
she's
have to watch
watching
this
him.
program. I want to watch the program, definitely. So, doctor, in few years after you graduate, you be a doctor,
Yes,
American doctor. So you see, you aspire for something great in life. Not just sit down and follow food. You know, some of you sell kerosene, not you sell kerosene. Sell kerosene, we sell ice. Remember one time, my wife, I was just married, nothing not in the house. I know the graduate, I don't get for work, I'm not married. Then I woman pala. We sell ice. Now ice, we sell ice corner, ginger beer. We learn school man. This is what we pass. He said, but he says, what's outside for now? We load the ice and but the cool man. For that we go 1991. We not say I look for outing, I look for him. 1991, just he left. We went with the cool man. Can you imagine my father? Who says they just go for the we know they. So that is how life is. There are times when God will allow you to go through all of these challenges in life so that you will know that He is God. He is God. He cannot be overthrown. Nobody can take His place. He is God. Okay, now we'll come to the last segment now of today's interview. Yes, some people today, so young people will become disillusioned in life and they will take the wrong decision. Some will maybe even want to take their life. So what can you say about them? What do you have to say to them? Those young people that become so disillusioned because of one thing or the other.
I think it's to encourage them to know that in life there are successes and failure.
Okay.
For example, I repeated Form 4 at the annuals because I was more of an art student than a science student, but because all my friends were going to science, I felt I could go to science and I had to repeat Form 4. And it was a challenging time. And I recall the day school reopened and I had to go to school and you were thinking everybody that saw you knew you had failed.
Oh my
But then, you know, after a week or two, even in school, except probably the friends that had moved on would realize the class that I had to repeat, the girls, they felt I was a new student in the school. It was much later they said, now we know why you're always with the 5 science girls. So you were in 4 science. Oh, we didn't know that. But, you know, you felt that weight, that burden, and I wasn't actually looking forward to going to school. So, you know, there are things you don't always have what you want in life. And the story, like you were saying, you cannot have a complete story without challenges. Even those people, I'm sure Bill Gates has a story.
Definitely.
And it's not a great story.
That's right.
There are always ups and downs in life. It's normal. And so, in as much as sometimes we parents put a lot of pressure on our children, I think we should be able to bring them up with that sort of strength and stamina to know that failure is acceptable. It's about how you bounce back.
Wow.
And you move on. That gives you that story that makes you even stronger. And so I want to encourage them that, you know, we hear of children taking their lives when they fail in their exams. I think last year there was a lady at Commerce, a young lady as well. I think they need to move on. We need to encourage young people to know that failure is part of life.
There's a poem I learned when I was in primary school. That was in the 60s. It is a lesson you should read, try again. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Then your courage will appear. You will conquer, never fear. Try again. So I think I need to talk to some of my teachers here, so they could be, you know, this kid should inculcate such in their spirit, man. You know, that you don't give up in life easily. You don't throw the towel. You don't take your life. You don't do anything that is detrimental to your future. Look at you. You failed in Form 4. Yet you had the courage. You know, I took my exam. That's the same thing with me. I thought I was there because one of my friends were going to science stream. And the science stream did injustice to me.
Exactly.
I failed. I failed mathematics. I failed. I get 9. 9 tadpole. That's what you call it by then. You know. So what did I do now? I waited. Then I went to the arts faculty. Then you say I got 1 in government, 2 in BK, 3 in English, blah 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 blah. You know. So those kids don't think that because you don't go to science subjects, you are not the smartest of all kids.
Exactly.
No, God may have called you to to the arts stream, to the commercial stream. So take it, all right, and go on with life. Okay. Tell us now about your encounter with Christ. Because I know you are a believer. Tell us about your encounter.
Yes, so as I mentioned, my mother was very prayerful, and she would take us to these churches. I recall there was one at, I think it's called Gabriel Street, Christ Apostolic Church.
That was it.
Yes, Pastor Alokan was there. I remember that name. We started attending that church, and then after that, we drifted because I knew she was going with my sister to New Testament church, but I never accompanied them to New Testament church. And then again, as I said, my sister, that was when we started attending Flaming. I think it met at Prince of Wales School. We went to Flaming, and then we went there for a while, and then we went to Evangel Church with Pastor Bai.
Okay.
And I think it was whilst we were there, 6th form, I gave my life to Christ. But I think, you know, it takes a while to really get into the flow. So we were there, and over the years, I would say it has been. I also was at Living Word of Faith. Okay. And then I came. I've been going back and forth in Flaming, but I think I've been here for like 7 years constantly now. I haven't drifted off.
So after the Flaming, since we were at Prince of Wales.
At Prince of Wales, yes.
That should be in the 90s, right?
Yeah, because I know I was in secondary school. Yes, secondary school then.
When you started attending Flaming?
Yes, when I started attending
So you've been in Flaming now for about 7 years. What do you like about Flaming? Why is it that you've been here for that long?
Well, I think one of the things I like practical preaching, because I think what I understand about Christianity is not about how many scriptures you can tick off head or how many church services or meetings. It's about the application in everyday life. And I see a lot of people, they'll be in all the church services and all the associations, but when there are issues in their daily lives, they have no skills to handle it. And I think most of the sermons give you that practical. It equips you to face. So whether, like we are saying, you are taking an exam and you fail, how do you cope? The family, children, just the day-to-day relationships, whether with family or friends or neighbors or within the community. How do you cope with just the things you meet on a daily basis? And I think I received that helps you, it equips you to face those issues. So when you get to challenging moments, you know exactly where. It doesn't mean, you wouldn't make mistake or bungle, but it gives you that as a Christian, this is what I should expect and this is what I'm supposed to do.
Wow. So in other words, it's rather a pragmatic gospel.
Yeah.
It's not only telling you the formula, but it should show you how to achieve the results.
Exactly.
That's interesting. So you've been in Flaming now. So, I mean, listeners and viewers will know today that you've been with us for about consistently about 7 years.
Yes, 7 years.
Yes, not counting the days or the years you spent with us at F.A.S School in the 90s. Oh, that's quite some time. That's quite interesting. You know, I am touched. We are looking at the brevity of our generation. These young people, our generation is lost. I spoke with somebody in England. I said, well, they became they go to a bishop, and now get the worst generation, the one old. Now this generation, they don't know God. Some will post to know God, but they don't know God. So I have in my heart, you know, to bring some like you are one of them, together so that we can discuss ways and means of how to help our young generation, how to salvage them from, you know, the shackles of sin, and there are many of them who maybe they don't know. So what can you say? How do you view this particular thing I want to form to help these young people? What's your take on this?
I think it's a very good initiative, and I think it's timely. As we had discussed when you mentioned it to me, I said it would be good, like I said, the sermons. So that's probably an aspect that needs to be built on. How do you feature young people into it, speaking to them specifically, not even in a group, but the message, because they need to have we need to have a different conversation with them. It's just the society, the way we're bringing up our children now. I think the parents are more to blame than the children themselves.
Okay.
We allow our children, we don't give them the sort of upbringing that we had. Okay, times are different, but I think if we put a lot more effort, sometimes the things you hear parents say, you start thinking, didn't we all grow up in a different environment? And this is why we are where we are now, and you are saying what you are saying now, and how do you expect your children to grow up with those positive attributes if you are thinking A and B and C should not be done? There's a lot of materialism. We think to show love and care for our kids is to buy them all these unnecessary things. Some are buying Apple phone for children in class 2.
Wow.
Some are giving their kids 20,000, 30,000, where they don't even know what the money means. So it's a lot of materialism rather than that time, that friendship, that companionship. And a lot of young people are missing out on that. The expectations from the parents are very high. They don't get to listen and hear and understand what their children are going through, what they need. And so they don't have a conversation with them. I mentioned I have a son, and he's 19 years old.
Okay.
And so I have a conversation with him. And in fact, he will tell me, I mean, he attends church here, but it's just the same. It goes in here and moves out. So, but I always say, and I know when he had his exams, I know everything doesn't leave his head, because I know when he was having his WAS exams, he would be praying. In fact, he called me, "Mommy, can we pray together?" And then he asked me, "Mommy, I think I need to fast. How can we do that?" So I know everything is not lost. But I have a conversation with him, and he would share, "I did this, and I did that, and I did that." And I'll tell him, "You know, this particular thing is not good. I hope maybe it's just these things that you like to explore. But you will realize this is not a good thing to continue with."
Okay.
And so because we have that open relationship, he shares a lot, and I'm able to nudge him, to guide him. He also has a conversation with my sister, his uncles, and they'll all nudge him to say, "Don't do that," or not in a very reprimanding manner,
Yeah.
but it's like a conversation. And when you have children or your nieces or your nephews, and they can relate with you, it helps you to be able to have a conversation. And you get to understand them, and they get to understand you. Sometimes I'll say to him, there are certain things you don't understand now. But when you get older, you'll be able to understand. There's one thing I think we discussed, which I did not hear you mention, which I want to share. It's with the young women.
Okay, go ahead.
And I think just to make sure I didn't forget, I just wanted to list it because I listed it down. I engage a lot of young women again, and I see all these issues around having an affair with older men or having somebody to take care of them. The message I would like to say to them, as I've explained, my parents were not together, because you'll hear some of them, oh, my parents are separated, or my father abandoned me. And, they're like looking for love constantly in their lives and getting into all sorts of issues. And I've also mentioned that my father's sister interfered immensely in my parents' marriage and even when my father died. But we didn't go astray, though we had all those challenges. We had a rebel war, and they burnt down a house. We were staying at Pademba Road. And as I said, we had all these challenges, but, there was favor. Things got back to normal, and we were building all of this. And they burnt down the house, and we lost everything. Wow. We had to be given up to underwear and toiletries by neighbors, by family members. But over time, again, God restored. And as I've mentioned, I repeated Form 4 because I took the wrong choice in terms of where my strength lies, which also means you don't... Our lives have separate paths they have to take. You don't have to be following your friends all the time. And then I didn't take my A-levels. Like I mentioned, I was sick. I just had a blackout one day. I just fell, and then I recovered, and I had to be flown out of the country. I was in the UK, and they did all this ECG and all this scanning, and they couldn't find anything wrong. And so they advised that I should not study anything heavy, because I just had this terrible headache for several months until eventually it wiped off. And then I have 2 children and I'm not married. So it's also about waiting on God and not trying to make a decision like people would say, you help God halfway.
That's right.
And being a single parent is not easy. It's challenging because it gets to a point the children start asking you certain questions and you start to think, what should I say? The good thing for me, though, their father is still on board. He's taking good care of them. Okay. But you also have the disappointment of thinking this individual would have married you, and they didn't, and they married somebody else. So you have to cope with all of that. So the main thing for me there is I did not allow anyone to judge me because I felt, yes, I knew the word. I shouldn't have got to that level. But I did not allow anyone to judge me because it was God I sinned against. And I knew what my spirit man felt, especially with my second child. I felt I knew the word a bit more, and so this should not happen. But I did not allow anyone to judge me or allow some thoughts, and I made sure I reconciled with God. And I always say children are from God. So it's a blessing. I thank God for that, but I advise a lot of young women that being a single parent, meaning even if the man is there to give you that support, it's completely different when you're not married. And you can see that there is a gap with the children. There really has to be a mother and the father in the home to have that sort of wholesome child that you want. And maybe the last thing I'd like to share is a lot of young people, or even young women, they talk about the workspace. I want to have a job, I want to work, and some would tell you, oh, well, I had to sleep with this man because I need to be promoted. I think it's value addition.
Value addition.
And that is what I say to all women. Even when I told you I'm at 50-50 working with, we push gender equality, but gender equality is not about trying to push men away or saying, oh, we are more superior. That's not the idea. It's just about complementary. Man and the woman together makes the whole, makes the community, makes the nation. Okay. So I always tell young people, it's even both men and women, it's about value addition. There has to be something you have to offer. You should have something in you. Then you'll be given a seat at the table. You are coming in with something. So over time, build yourself, build your skills, build your knowledge, build your expertise. Everybody should not be thinking. Now they say there are 20,000 people applying for FBC. If you are not, they cannot accommodate 20,000 people. If you cannot go to FBC, it doesn't mean if you are doing sewing, it means you are not intelligent. We have the lady Frederica, who we were all at university. She was a few years ahead. She always wanted to do dressmaking. Now she's a designer. Wow. She goes to Dubai. She goes to Ghana. She goes to the UK. where she designs, not just sewing, she designs. Now she's even opened a school where she's training.
Wow.
So it's about that value addition. If you cannot have, we don't need all the degrees we're having. We need people with skills, we need people with competence, and you also need the right and positive attitude to add value. So young women, you can have all the challenges, but you should be able to face it bravely, and you'll be able to make it in life.
Wow, what a way to end this interview today. And I believe that young people, you may have picked up some very salient points that she is trying to, tell you about. Value yourself. Don't look at yourself that you are so cheap. The other day I was driving along King Street and I had a young girl, maybe she's 15 or 16. She was shouting, 1 hour, 5,000 news. So I said to myself, what is that? What she's doing? So she has already given up herself in life. He said, well, this time we know if you make us. You are more than that. Thank God she said she like the prodigal son, she fell and she came up and said, oh yes, I think I have reconciled with God. That's the main thing. So thank you very much, Sister Valnora Edwin. Today, do you have some?
Yes, sir. We have a few.
Okay, okay. Let's hear them before
I
we
think
conclude.
this one is from Mr. Shilon. I'm impressed by your dominion in representing Salon International Forum. Indeed, we need to change our words to change and affect our world. And also from your wife, Lady Pat, she says, I love impact because it does not only tells you one's glory, but their stories.
I like that. Okay, one's glory, but their story.
But their stories, yes.
Okay, that's the most important text that has come in. Go ahead.
Another one from Aisatu Veronica Sapate Abu. Application is in everyday life, right? I think you said something about the application.
Okay,
life,
that's thank you very much, Miss Abu.
And also from Prince Allen, impact, glory to God, always blessed. And one from Lahai Ibrahim Jobraima, thank God so much, Dad. I think this is all we have for now.
Wow, what a way to end this edition of Impact. Good. What will be your last word, if I should ask?
Well, I believe that what we have discussed here today has been a blessing to many. And it's just to encourage that if this has met you at a very low point in time in your life, you should realize that this is what life is all about, and there cannot be the glory without the story.
Say it again. I need to be able to imbibe what you said. Yes, say it again.
Bishop, it has gone.
It has gone. Oh, okay, it came by inspiration.
Yes.
It came by inspiration. Okay, so if you want to hear what she just said, you can go to our Facebook page. It's already recorded there or YouTube. Okay, you can retrieve them there.
We have two more. One for I think what's the Mr. Charles Conte, life-changing advice. The advice that he gave.
Okay, well you go there. It's just an inspiration.
Another one from Pastor Saiba Cecilia. Great wisdom to our generation.
Okay, Saiba Cecilia from UK.
Great wisdom to our generation from Chatham.
From Chatham,
yes.
in Kent, UK.
Yes.
That's very interesting. So you see, we have viewers and listeners from Turkey, from USA, from Greece, from UK, from you name them, all over the world. So I think this has serve as a platform for you to reach to our generation. People need to hear this truth. They need to hear the truth, because the Bible says only the truth that will make you free. Without the truth, you cannot be set free. And thank you for listening. I am your host, Bishop Dr. Frederick Abubakar Siddiqui Sulaiman Koroma. I want to thank God for Radio Universal Radio 98.9 for Mr. and Mrs. Space, who are also airing this program live, to also Dr. Bishop Laga and Rayinka. Thank you so much for giving us the platform where we can hear this program on Radio Destiny Radio, FM 94.1. Also, Hot Bliss 88.1. Jamal is a secular radio station Thank you very much, Mr. Jamal, and to all the, how should I put them now? The staff and the volunteers here at Fleming. We say thank you so much for making impact what it is today. God richly bless you until we'll meet again. Maybe next week, Tuesday at 1 p.m. Have a blessed and wonderful day, the first day of November. May God remember you in this month of November. Bless you, you're coming in and you're going out. And may your Christmas be pleasant. Thank you very much. Tata.